Little Horse and Big Conversation. Welcome to Little Horse and Big Conversation, where we give them their say, let the horse guide the way. Here at Little Horse and Big Conversation, we have the choice, so let's give them a voice. Here at Little Horse and Big Conversation, Little Horse and Big Conversation.
Hello and welcome back to the latest episode of the Little Horse Big Conversation podcast. You're here with me, Ross Cooper, and my co-host Amy Mitchell. And today, this is something that me and Amy feel quite passionate about. And well, we want to involve you guys in the conversation about sustainability. Now, this was like a topic idea of mine from a few weeks ago, because back in I think it must have been 2020, 21. I wrote a series of articles for Horsemanship Journal magazine, which was centered around sustainability in equestrianism and how we've gone through the years looking at it in reflection. What I wrote back then seems to actually be coming to pass in a way where I actually didn't expect that, but I think at the time it was a series of articles that unless you were interested in climate change or you wanted to maybe take a little bit more of a incorporate some different things to make management for horses more sustainable, I don't think it was really acknowledged at the time as much as what it could have been. But then, just dipping into the article again recently and reading some of the things that I wrote then and actually seeing things start to happen now, it does make you kind of think we need to start making some changes.
Yeah. Yeah, it really does. I think the first most really obvious thing that will come to every UK horse owner's mind, or certainly those of us that are kind of in the Midlands and the south of the UK, is that last year we had such a dry summer. After a relatively dry winter, we had an incredibly dry summer and there was a terrible hay crop. And some people have been struggling to get hay and other people have been fleeced by by hay supplies. I mean, understandably, if you've only had a third of the crop that you would normally have, you've got to put your prices up a lot. But it's been quite a worrying time, I think, for a lot of owners. At the point of recording, we're actually at the end of May, and this podcast will go out, in a few weeks' time. But we've just come to the end of what has been a really hot week. This week, temperatures have, in my area, in the Midlands, have been 34 degrees on a couple of occasions this week, which, in May is unheard of. It's broken records, which is not a good thing. So yeah, there are really clear and obvious changes happening that are not one-offs. I mean, I don't remember how many years ago it was now. It must have been maybe 3, possibly 4 years ago when we had those few days where it actually topped 40 degrees.
Yes, it was July 2020,
Was it?
and the UK broke the 40 degree Celsius threshold for the first time,
Yeah.
and that was four
Yeah.
years ago. And I think, was that the year after we had that really hot May, or was that the year before?
Oh, they all blend into each other in my head.
They do when it was COVID related. That just seems like a blip, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's like with seasons. We aren't getting distinct seasons anymore.
No. No.
This year
I
has
mean,
been, I
this
think,
make me sound like a real old person. But when I was a kid, winter was cold. Like you got proper frosts and snow regularly. Um, Whereas a lot of the time now, I probably scraped ice off my car a handful of times this winter. I don't think it snowed here at all this winter, maybe a tiny little scattering, but nothing, nothing more than that. Um, and that's been the kind of pattern that's been building up. So yeah, we are definitely getting milder and often it seems much wetter winters. I mean, the winter that's just gone, again, it will be burned into the brains of most UK horse owners how wet it was, and having to deal with mud, and from a hoof trimmer's perspective, like muddy feathery cobs,
Yeah, we know
making the
that.
job fun. And now we're into rock hard dry feet making the job fun. But yeah, when you stop and look, there's definitely new patterns emerging
Hmm.
which are concerning.
The Met Office has actually said there are 25% fewer air and ground frosts in the UK compared to the 1980s.
And that's such a short amount of time,
Mm. That's
really.
what 45 years?
Yeah, as I say, since I was a kid. I'm giving my age away here, but
You're alluding to it. You're not giving anything away. But I mean, why do you feel? I mean, I think there is a lot of information out there about climate change, and it seems to be a very controversial topic. So, why do you think
Mm.
that climate change is a controversial topic for people? Why do people discount it? Why do they think it's a little bit of hocus pocus or a bit of propaganda?
I think because it's inconvenient. Let's be honest, it's
Yeah.
it's inconvenient. Like having to think about driving your car less, um, or cutting back on things, using less plastic. The problem with AI using massive amounts of water in data centers. Um, AI is horrible for the planet, but it's convenient. So it's very easy. And it's also, I think it's like I find if I think too hard about it, I find it quite stressful thinking about it. Like, the state that things are in and are going. Um, it's kind of less stressful to stick your head in the sand as well.
Yes. Do you think it feels overwhelming to people?
I
Because
think it can do. Yeah, it does
that's
to
one thing
me.
that I've probably felt.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's like, you for me, I don't like seeing all this stuff happening, but I am one individual. And you
Mm.
feel like, filling up your recycling bin and stuff, but then you drive around the countryside and see the amount of crap that people just throw out of their car windows. And it just, do you know what I mean? It just feels
Yeah.
it's like,
I think because our brain is also so wired to respond to immediate threats now.
yeah, yeah,
Like
that's a
we
good
like we
point.
feel very much overwhelmed when we try and forward plan and think what might happen in the future. But I
Yeah,
think because our brains are wired to respond to immediate threats, that actually, when it comes to, like you say, that forward planning, the brain doesn't see it as an immediate issue.
yeah. And I think the problem is as well with political leadership. Um, a politician's interest is getting into power
Mm,
and then staying in power for the length of that term and maybe getting re-elected. People want short term. People want to feel the benefit in their back pocket.
yeah.
People don't want to be looking at a 30-year strategy.
No, but
So
we
that doesn't get people elected.
and it
So
seems
there's no drive. I feel like there's not a strong enough drive from leadership to create policies. I mean, look, I hate to bring this up, but look at some of the stuff that's going off in America, the lack of, the changes that are being made with national parks, and Donald Trump is doing an awful lot of damage to good work that has been done in moving towards more sustainability. And the rest of the I don't want this to end up in a talk about politics too much, but I don't think you can avoid it.
no, because it is an integral part of this of what's happening of the subject.
Yeah. And if the the big loud leaders in the world are all saying it's all rubbish, all we care about is making money, 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 it's a difficult platform to start from.
Hmm. What's really interesting is like, I mean, I'll be honest, I don't follow too much politics,
Mm,
but
wise.
some of the yeah, a few people say that actually. Um, but one of the things that I do pay attention to is your conference of parties, so your COPs.
Mm,
So that's just effectively where, you know, the United Nations get together and they discuss and hear the latest science and plan a way forward about how to tackle climate change.
yeah.
So that's probably one of the things that I do pay attention to politically when it comes to this sort of thing. But what I always find really interesting is that listening to the difference of opinions that people put forwards,
Mm,
and that actually the majority can be quite invested. But then when it comes to actually making, like you say, those long-term changes,
mm,
that's when some of the parties seem to fall short. And it's the ones that are, I mean, I think the last one that I really paid full attention to was COP26, um, which was a few years ago now. But from what I remember, the ones that have now gone, okay, we need to change things and then have backtracked have been the wealthier
mm,
of the
yeah.
states,
Yeah.
which is a shame because yes, I completely understand from an economic perspective, economic growth, but we're not going to have economic growth if we're going to be severely compromised as a species in 50, 60 years
Yeah.
time. I mean, look
Yeah.
what's happening now. And I think I think one of the things with climate change is that because it can feel like such an overfacing subject, and we do have influence from media, from political parties going, oh, it's fine. There's sort of like that optimistic bias towards, oh, it's not a problem now. We're good. You know, we don't need to worry about it. But I think as individuals, we can, like you were saying, Amy, burying our head in the sand. Even if we're
Mm,
not burying our head in the sand, I think sometimes we can go, oh, well, it's not affecting me.
mm, mm. But
So
as horse owners, it is.
yes, yes. And this is what I think this is what we are seeing a lot of over the past couple of years. And I know I'm most definitely seeing it from a management perspective. I don't know about
Yeah.
you, but I can imagine you're seeing the same things.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how is that showing up for you? Because I think what I mean from my perspective, I'm seeing horses that are struggling with weight, that are
Mm,
struggling with metabolic issues, and that horses that have never previously suffered with their management routine. Management hasn't changed. There may have been a change in hay sourcing because of obviously recent events, but their management, their husbandry, their their physical emotional wellness is all
mm.
maintained. The one thing that I'm seeing that is changed is the climate, the seasons, the warmer winters, the wetter winters, and how that's showing
Yeah.
up in their bodies and causing problems as a result. So I'm interested to hear what your experience is with the metabolic laminitic side.
Yeah. I mean, very similar, to be honest. Um, and I'd kind of like to throw into the mix here as well, because I think it's strongly attached to it. Um, like chemicals in the environment, crop
Yes.
spraying, glyphosate. So I I have a client who, and I'm not sure whether I've spoken about them on the podcast before, but on paper they've got the most amazing setup. Their horses live on a lovely track system. They their access to grass is very controlled. They've got good hay. They're given lots of herbal supplements, lots of movement, settled herd. Like on paper, you'd look at it and think, "Wow, this is fabulous." Their water source, their only water source is a natural stream that comes through. And again, it's beautiful. The horses can go get into the water, splash around. You look at it and you think, wow, this is pony paradise. But they've had, over recent years, had a number of issues with horses developing metabolic problems and acute laminitis and breathing problems and liver issues, like things that you think, how is this happening to these horses here? Like, of all the horses, this should not be happening to these horses. And I don't have proof, but my conviction is that the only thing that it can be is the water source. And it's chemicals, particularly when we get a lot of rain, chemicals being washed out and leached into the water upstream where there's agricultural land, and then the horse is drinking it. And that it's, and when you look it up, and there's things, and I actually put a post on my Facebook page, the Orion Academy Facebook page, a couple of months ago, saying, am I imagining this, or have other people experienced this? And there's a huge amount of anecdotal evidence from other people saying, yeah, definitely crop spraying has caused problems for my horses.
Yeah. And people
Um,
don't consider the runoff into the water, like you were saying. So that's a really, really good point.
mm. And like overspray. So we had last year, was it last summer? I'm pretty sure it was last summer. I have a pond at the bottom of my track that the horses like to drink out of. They prefer to drink out of there than the tap water at the top. But there was a day when the farmer was spraying in the field at the bottom where we don't have a particularly good hedge, unfortunately. And I think the wind direction was such that chemicals got blown onto the track and probably also a bit into the pond. And within 24 hours, every single one of those horses had gut issues.
Hmm.
Nothing else had changed. And one of those horses, it then took us several months to get him back to normal. I don't believe that's a coincidence.
Nope.
So,
Because glyphosate is one of the ones that is quite renowned, isn't it, for a
yeah,
negative impact on gut health.
yeah,
So if they're using any of the like, fluoride, nitrates, chlorine, that I think the thing is when people, sorry to jump in here, but I think the thing is when people think about crop spraying, they
mm,
think about the crop itself, when
yeah.
actually this all affects the soil.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean,
So
soil is a whole other.
yeah.
Like, we could do a whole podcast about that on its own.
Shall we do one about soil? Because you always want to ensure that the soil quality has got.
We must definitely do one about soil, and I'm going to write this down
Yes.
because I know somebody who is a soil expert, and we need to get her on as a guest.
Excellent. But for anyone out there that wants to check their soil quality, that is a really healthy thing to do. And you can get soil testing kits online. It's a really great place to start because there is such a delicate balance between the nutrients and microorganisms in the soil.
Yeah,
And this also can vary from field to field. So, if you've got 7 acres, that can really vary. So, if the
yeah,
soil's sick and it lacks what is needed, it's not going to support the health of the grasses growing. And then
yeah,
ultimately, obviously, animals that graze on it. So it has these far-reaching consequences. But again, I think things like that wider impact is something that we can be a little bit more closed off to.
yeah,
And some of the things can be really sort of simple to remedy. So, like soil testing, I think that's always really good. Try and go organic if you can, and look at planting pollinators, or which also do work as enrichment for your horses.
and yeah, I think grass management, the way that we manage our land, is
Mm,
really important. So obviously, I'm a big fan of a track system. I have my own track system, but I appreciate if it doesn't work for everyone, and if you're on clay soil, it's a lot more difficult to manage than me, who's very lucky on sandy soil. But it's not the only management system. The equicentral approach is also really good for managing grazing. Overgrazing is a real problem. You end up with very little root growth on plants that are overgrazed. Whereas if you're doing some sort of a rotational grazing, strip grazing, equicentral track system, one of these kind of management systems, the grass and the other plants actually have the opportunity to develop really good root systems, which mean that they're better able to pull water into the ground. You end up with much better nitrogen fixing. Like you end up losing less soil through erosion. It's really important from the benefit of the ground, the benefit of the plants, and also the health of the horses. I mean, we're all pretty comfortable, I think, nowadays with understanding that really short stressed grass is high in sugar, and that is not good for our metabolic horses. But I also, what's been lovely for me with my track system is I think it's amazing from a conservation perspective as well. So the
Yes.
middle paddocks, we've got lots of wildflowers, weeds. It's a whole host of different grasses. So you get all this lovely plant life, which then attracts lots of wildlife. And even on a small acreage, I've got just under 4 acres. This morning, it was lovely. I was putting hay out for the horses and went to tie hay up to one of the hay feeders, and a little owl was actually sat inside the hay feeder on the other side. And as I came up, I didn't realize it was there, and it kind of flew off. And I switched my Merlin bird app on, and within less than 2 minutes, 20 species of bird. And there's goldfinches at the moment that are eating some of the grass seeds, and I feel like there is such a lot of land that we keep horses on
Mm.
in the UK that if more people could use this as an opportunity to make their horses' environment better for conservation and for wildlife, like the massive difference that we could make. Having hedgerows, allowing paddocks to rest and to grow, planting different species, having wildflowers introduced that then brings in the insects that then bring in the birds that, you get different mammals coming in. Imagine if we had that across the horse owning world, the massive difference it would make in terms of the environment
'Cause
and conservation.
how many acres do you have for your system?
I've got just under 4 acres.
And that's the difference you could make with 4 acres.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Just a little bit of thought um makes and it's so good then it's good for the horses because they've
Yeah.
got much healthier forage to be eating.
And this isn't just limited to where we keep our horses. I mean, I know
No.
everyone isn't fortunate enough to have their own land to be able to do this on, but look at what you can do in your gardens.
Yeah.
There's been a really cool, and I do need to catch up on this one. David Attenborough has recently done a documentary series on BBC called Secret Garden.
Oh, nice.
And that's where he's focusing on the wildlife and the improvements you can make with just within your garden that
Mm,
encourage biodiversity and influx of wildlife, everything from butterflies to hedgehogs to badgers and foxes.
yeah.
So, there's so much that can be done, but without needing acres and acres
Yeah,
and
just
acres
on
and
a small
acres.
scale. But that small scale can make a big difference.
Yes. And I think this brings us round really nicely to it being the changes that we make
Mm,
that affect the greater change in itself.
yeah. Yeah. And going back to where we kind of started the conversation about, this sort of overwhelm and head in the sandness that develops, like this is it's a really positive way to be able to feel like you are doing something good for the environment and
Mm.
for for nature, which is so important. Like we are one species of the millions and millions of species on this planet. We need to look wider than ourselves.
Mm. Do you think our way of living is sustainable?
That feels like a leading question, Mr. Cooper. We're going to
Potentially.
segue nicely now.
That wasn't subtle at all, was it?
Um, no, I absolutely don't. You'll be surprised to hear. I mean, this is a thing that I have conversations with people about on a regular basis. It just kind of keeps cropping up. But I think we're so, like modern society is such a like in a lot of ways such a terrifying social experiment that is going horribly wrong in so many ways. I was again, I'm going to go back to my my childhood, which was all that time ago. But I grew up, and me and my brother would go off out for days at a time. We'd just get bikes out in the morning and go off and climb trees and explore, and probably did all sorts of things that were life-threateningly dangerous. But we survived to tell the tale. But we were always outdoors and doing stuff and engaging with the planet in one way or another. Going down and making fishing rods that never worked and and playing in the river and just exploring and climbing trees, and it was very engaged with the world. And you just don't see that now. I'm aware of so many people that I know personally whose teenagers just don't really want to leave the house, that are just stuck to online gaming and social media and all these things that are not natural to us as a species, that's just come out of nowhere really in such a short space of time,
Hmm.
and it's making people sick.
Because it was us 90s babies that
90s pa 70s here, mate.
oh, but the 90s. I mean, hello. Even though 70s, you didn't know who Pikachu was yesterday. Do
Yeah, I think that's fine.
you know who Pikachu is now?
Well, I did look it up and I was like, oh, I have seen that thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, right. So, saved.
I am aware
Um,
of its existence now. I've seen the picture.
before we digress into Pokemon, um, like I think it was 90s, which were the first. I think they were the first generation to experience life before the new age development in technology with mobile phones and
Mm,
Wi-Fi and gaming, and still used to go out and play
yeah,
with with like Action Men and go climb trees on your bike, that sort of thing.
yeah, yeah,
So it's really interesting when you have conversations with people that were maybe born in the noughties that have no experience of what
yeah,
precluded to that.
yeah. I mean, the wonderful days of being able to go out and no one could get hold of you. Like, how lovely was that? You didn't get like the other day, and I'm not complaining about any of the individual people. I'm grateful that people wanted to contact me, but throughout the course of one day earlier this week, I had messages during the day from 20 different people.
and that was only 15 different sides of my personality.
Okay. I'm going to start blocking some of these personalities. But you know what I mean? Like, it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
We're not designed for all that. We're designed to live in little communities, not to be faced with constant contact and like being bombarded with opinions from the whole of the world, like millions. And in some ways, it's fabulous. You know, I've developed friendships with people that I would never have developed friendships with as a result of some of this stuff. But, you know, it it's not healthy.
I think a lot of the way in which we live through, social conditioning and the choices that we make
Mm,
promote a really unhealthy, unsustainable way of being.
yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. I feel I'm in quite a privileged position to comment on this because I've had almost like two lives in that I had my corporate career where I remember at one point I was working on a particular contract down in London, and in winter I was getting on the train in the dark, going down to London, getting to the office. It would still be dark when I got to the office. The project that I was on, we'd been put in the basement, so it was fluorescent lights. You'd be in there all day. You might get a lunch break if you were lucky, and then you'd come out at night and it was dark. And it like you'd see no natural light really for days on end. And it was making not only me, but numerous of my colleagues, like it was making people ill. Um and yeah, and you know, I had a corporate job and it wasn't all involved in being like a mole in a basement. But all that, you know, commuting and rushing about and kind of heavy deadlines and being indoors so much of the time and staring at a computer and not moving and all of that. I hadn't realized, I think, until I stopped doing it, how exhausting and unwell it had made me.
Mm.
And now, you know, I'm outdoors almost all the time. I'm moving. I'm dealing with horses. So, you know, I've got that lovely horse energy. And I am physically so much healthier, but also mentally so much healthier.
Mm. And even within that, I think, is there anything that you can recall where you could go, okay, I could do this and be a little bit healthier within doing so? Because I think it's great that you've got that comparison.
Mm.
A lot of people will be super grateful for where they're at, which I think to practice gratitude is one of the things that we really need to do daily
Yeah, it's
because
massive.
it makes us appreciate absolutely everything and just that little bit more so.
Yeah.
But even though we're fortunate to be in the position that we are in, there can usually still be a few things that we can do to increase how healthy we approach things with.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it really does. And I think a massive part of it, and that has been a huge learning curve for me, like really over the last 10 years, um, is the whole mind-body connection. Um, and you know, how integrating more movement into your life, and as you say, like things like gratitude and trying to eat a better diet. Um, but like movement is such an important thing. And I say it about horses all the time, like movement, movement, movement. It's like medicine,
Mm.
but it's the same for us.
Yes.
It's, I mean, one, yes, of course, it keeps you physically healthy, but it's so good for your nervous system. You know, just integrating your and moving trapped energy and sort of trauma out of your nervous system, movement is so important as part of that.
Yeah.
Just going out for a walk and just going out for a walk and switching your phone off while you do it, and you know, being really aware of your surroundings.
I
Like
think
stop being so in your head and start like how does the this is going to make me sound like a total hippie, but like it makes such a difference. Like how does the wind feel on your skin? And what can you smell? Like as you're walking down like a nice country path, you can smell at the moment it's lovely. You can smell different flowers and pollen, and the air changes when you're in amongst trees, and the the sounds and the way that the ground feels under your feet. Like it brings you back into your body
mm,
rather than being so stuck in your brain and your mind and all these thoughts and overthinking. Like it just bringing yourself back into your body.
that's not hippie though. That's how we were meant to function.
And I
That's
don't know if you remember, and again, I'm sure I've talked about this before, but like when we first met, I I remember I'm pretty sure it was you that said something to me, or it might have been something that Nishon had said, but about feeling the fabric of the clothes on your skin. And I just thought this was batshit crazy. It's like, how can you possibly? I was so detached from my body, I couldn't even feel my clothes on my own skin.
and how many people are now listening to this going, wait, can I feel my clothes on my own skin? It's great
Yeah,
exercise though.
it really is. Um, and I'm very grateful that I've come a very, very long way from there now. Um, but it's this coming back into our own bodies is so vital for health.
Mm. It's embodying,
Mm,
it's embodiment within itself.
yeah,
And I think it show it sh- it sh- it is all about being present. That's that's all it is.
mm,
Because it will show up within our bodies all the time when we are living out of alignment. And it might take us a while to realize that, you
yeah,
know, we
yeah,
might, you know, our immune system might be compromised. We might start to develop pathologies, autoimmune conditions.
mm,
I think
mm.
when we've read, I mean, I always highly recommend reading any of Gabor Mate's work.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
I think when we was delving into those books a few years ago, you know, Gabor speaks quite a lot about the link between autoimmune conditions
mm,
and sort of suppressed trauma and chronic emotional stress,
yeah,
which having autoimmune myself,
yeah,
I can very much see an interlink between that. And what's really interesting is over the past couple of weeks, quite a focus for me has been embodying what I mean and what I feel.
mm,
And I've created space within the last 2 or 3 weeks for me to be able to do that and really focus on that. And the difference that my body feels now in comparison to 6 weeks ago, you think you're operating from a place of peace and
mm.
presence, but you are then very humbled when you realize that you're not.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
And we've all got choices, and I think a lot of us do have different circumstances, but we're never trapped.
yeah,
We've all got a choice that we can make,
yeah, yeah,
and it's all about the small changes.
yeah. And sometimes, those choices feel quite uncomfortable. Um, but the benefit that can come out the back end of it is huge. Um, Ross will remember. So I've recently started getting really into breath work. It started off when I had read Susan Fay's Sacred Spaces book, and then followed up on more of her stuff, and then branched out and started doing more. And both Ross and I are currently doing breathwork coaching courses.
Woo!
Yeah. But once, so I was a few weeks ago, I was driving down to do an assessment on a horse for someone, and I had like a guided breathwork podcast in the background. So I was doing this breathwork as I was driving along, and then it was very close to me having lost one of my dogs. So I was struggling a lot emotionally. And Ross Ross bore the brunt of me having this like sudden massive traumatic release from the breath work that then made all these things come out that I'd been, with regards to my dog and horses that I've owned in the past, and like all this stuff just suddenly came out, and I was Ross ended up with this phone call of me crying down the phone, going, "Oh, all this is this, and this," and at the time I hadn't put the two things together, but having learnt more about the breath work, it was that released that from my nervous system, and some of that stuff's been trapped in there for years. So there are simple things that we can do. Like, yes, sometimes massive, big lifestyle choices. And as someone that's done that, I know it can be pretty daunting and difficult to do. And not everyone wants to throw their whole life out and start again. And I'm not suggesting that, but like small things that you can do that are so beneficial.
Yeah. And I think we had a very similar conversation when we spoke about the canine nervous system, just nervous systems in general, with Rose
Yeah,
Waldrop.
with Rose. Yeah.
And when it comes to making changes, it is small changes that are often the most beneficial, and they're always the most manageable. Whether
Mm,
we're applying that to introducing breath work for 5 minutes a morning with ourselves,
yeah.
or we're making small changes towards a life that we want to live, which is more sustainable and healthier for us, whether that is phasing out certain foods, whether that's introducing certain foods, whether
Mm,
that is, getting time with friends to connect and laugh, or whether that's time in nature. And the same mindset and the same philosophy can be applied to the bigger picture with our
mhm.
horses,
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
nature, with life as a whole.
Yeah.
The body and the world is designed to heal.
Yeah.
It's not designed to stay in a state of dysfunction.
No.
So we'll always get warning signs, and we're getting quite a lot of those at the moment.
Mm,
But as much as we need to heed and listen to the warning signs, it's in the listening where we're going to be able to begin our healing.
yeah. I feel like that's probably a really nice way to round off the conversation.
Have I done it again?
You have. Yeah. Wise words there, Mr. Cooper. Wise words.
Namaste.
Yeah.
Oh, but
Ah.
I really enjoyed that. I think that, yeah, I really enjoyed that. I felt that was quite a wholesome conversation.
Yeah, I think so too. It's one of those things, isn't it? Like now and again things happen and you reflect back on it and like, huh, that was quite a massive episode in my life, actually.
Yeah, the significance of things, eh?
Indeed. Thank you all once again for listening. If you made it to the end, we are very, very grateful. And once again, if we could please ask, you would be doing us a massive favour if you could like the podcast, like the episode, share it with a friend, or leave us a little review. That would be amazing and help us to get this out to a wider audience. But thank you once again, and we will be back with you in 2 weeks' time for the next episode.
See you soon, guys.